21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
I've been consumed my whole life with this one question. And the question has sort of evolved over time, but the consistent part of it has been like, what does it mean to be successful in modern life? And I went on this journey, I was an ambitious person, young person, and I really wanted to make it in America, fully bought into the American dream and entrepreneurship and citizenship. And so I've been pursuing a life trying to answer that question. And it's evolved in so many different ways and manifested in different parts of my career, everything from the businesses I started, as well as the newsletter I write called Profit Plus, and the podcast that I've been working on the last several years called the Nick Halaris Show. And it's just a question that continues to fascinate me every day, and a place I'm trying to add value to society, trying to answer it. Hi, my name is Nick Halaris, and I am an entrepreneur and an engaged citizen of America, and a father and a husband. And professionally, I'm involved in several different things. I write a newsletter called Profit Plus, which is an ongoing meditation about what it takes to build wealth without losing your integrity. I host a podcast called the Nick Halaris Show, which is an examination of the big issues of the world, but through the lens of people who are actually trying to do something constructive about it. And I also run a real estate company called Metros Capital. And we invest in residential development projects and renovation projects here in Los Angeles and across the country. In preparing for this conversation, or this podcast, I've been thinking a lot about sort of my phase as an entrepreneur, or my journey as an entrepreneur. And it occurred to me that there's sort of three phases that I've been through. And I've come up with like catchy titles for each phase. When I was first started out, I was one of these young people who was fully indoctrinated with the mythology of the American dream. And the thing I wanted most was to be successful, almost no matter what. Like I call it the get rich no matter what phase. And that's where I started. Like I had a moral, fortunately I had great parents. And so it's not like I was without a moral framework or moral compass, but my overriding concern was, let's get rich, because I wanted to participate in this American dream. And then after doing that, and thank God I actually was successful and I didn't get myself in too much trouble. I realized that, wait a minute, there's probably a different way to think about this, which is, yeah, fine, pursue success, pursue achievement, but maybe do it in the right way. And for me, what that meant is sort of like not compromising, partnering with the right people, not just pursuing money, but pursuing money in a way that felt right. And then as I got going with that, I realized I had another realization sort of later on that actually you need to just drop the whole get rich part of it, because that kind of thinking infects your brain and kind of in the wrong direction. And you really need to pursue a mission. And that's why I think I ended up doing so many different things in my entrepreneurial career, and why I'm doing the newsletter and podcast, and why my business has evolved so much over time, is because I came to this ultimate realization that there's nothing wrong with the American dream, but the American dream without a moral bedrock and without a mission is kind of empty. And so now I'm really in my day-to-day life, I'm really focused on mission. I'm focused on trying to provide value, take what I can, what I've learned and my skills and my unique capabilities, and to share them. And to share them in a way that, sometimes there's a business attached to it and sometimes there's not. And just accept that, the goal, the new goal of life is to make a difference, to be a positive force. in the world. What I've been focused on with my writing and my podcasting, and to some extent, even with the real estate business itself, is trying to encourage people to focus on 3 or 4 different ways of achieving success in modern life. And so if you want to get it real tactical level, what I'm doing, what I'm talking a lot about or advising people a lot about is the importance of becoming an owner. We live in this incredible era where entrepreneurship is wide open and available to anyone, really. Obviously that's not always true, but look, it's the pathways to entrepreneurship have never been more open. And I I'm trying to put this message out into the world and mentor young people to help them see the truth about this capitalist system that we're in, which is that the best place you could possibly position yourself is ownership. And ideally, you own your own business. But even if you don't own your own business, ownership can manifest in different ways. Like young people coming to me saying, "Hey, I don't have a business idea." Well, you could join a startup and get shares. That is a much better situation than just getting a high paying job. You really want to, the tax code is structured to favor people who are owners, and the capitalist system is like wildly skewed to favor people who are owners. So that's sort of path one. How do we get people to be owners? And this applies beyond just business too. Like America is skewing heavily in sort of 2 paths. Like, do you own a home or not own a home? So I'm encouraging people to own homes. And part of what I'm trying to do with my business is help people become homeowners. Um, for the longest time, early in my career, I was invested almost exclusively in rentals. And there's nothing wrong with rental property. People need a place to live, but I feel more philosophically aligned with homeownership models. And so that's what I'm focused on these days, because I really do. I mean, that's one of the core components of the American dream. And so I'm trying to help people as best I can. It's very difficult in this world because housing is so expensive. The second area is understanding that the key to economic success and to moral success in life is about providing value. And so there's many ways to provide value, and everyone has sort of a unique set of skills that they come into life with. And the goal of education is to discover that for yourself. And it's literally, it changes over time. Like some people are born and they are like a phenomenal singer, right? Like they kind of know what they got to do. They got to become a musician, an artist. It's a very clear path. But for people like me, it takes a while to figure out like, hey, I'm good at understanding business and money and economics, but I'm also have this interest in spirituality and philosophy and whatnot. So maybe I put those things together and I could come up with a product or a service that provides a lot of value. Um, the third principle that I've been working on a lot is this idea that nature and capitalism are aligned in this really interesting way that most people don't talk about, which is that you have to contribute more than you extract. And so the way I think about that, the way that manifests in practical ways is that you don't approach business relationships and business transactions in the way that is represented by movies like Wall Street. That's not really how this works. Like you're not really trying to be the greedy CEO who just tries to get as much money for him or herself as possible. You end up in a much better place in your life if you have a much more open, flexible, long-term mindset. Like, hey, I don't have to win in every instant, and maximize in every moment. And then the fourth thing that I've been thinking a lot about is this idea of not being complicit. So we live in a world where it's really easy to just go along with something. Even if you really were to step back and think about like, hey, I don't really think this is a right approach. whether it's, to use like a concrete example, like let's say that you really believed in your heart of hearts that uh, climate change was the biggest issue in the world, but in your daily life, you're driving around a gas guzzler. Like it's really easy to have that belief, but yet be taking actions that are complicit with, the problem in your head. And that manifests in millions of different ways. I mean, you can be complicit on accident in all sorts of things that end you up in hot water, um, which is dangerous. So those are the four things I've been focused on in my writing and creative work and my business. Another thing that I've been focused a lot on in my life is freedom. And when I was a young man, young entrepreneur, I was one of the main draws I had to pursuing entrepreneurship and real estate in particular was that I looked at the lifestyle of people that I saw in that, and it looked really appealing, to have complete control of your schedule every day. I only worked like one or two real jobs in my life, and I found something so like discomforting about the idea of having to report to duty, not it wasn't that it was against my will because I took these jobs and I worked with very fine people. There was nothing wrong with the people I worked with, but it just bothered me and I wanted that freedom. And at first I thought that the freedom that I was pursuing was the financial freedom. Again, it goes back to that first phase of my evolution of, get rich no matter what. Like I thought the goal was financial freedom. But I realized along the way that freedom is much more serious than that. And it's much deeper than that. And that the real kind of freedom that you're looking for is freedom of time and the ability to think freely. And so I've been writing a lot about this. Like I recently wrote an article where I talked about the four pillars of freedom. And number one, freedom is teachable. So I think that what I've taken away from my study of philosophy and spirituality is that freedom is something you need to learn how to engage with because it's difficult. It's essentially the fundamental challenge of being a human. You're born and you really don't have a clear idea of what you're supposed to do. You could do anything. That's the incredible thing about life. You could go in any direction, good or bad. You could become an artist. You could climb Mount Everest. Like there's no limits really, except for his basic physics and science. And so you have to learn how to deal with that freedom. And it's very serious. It's literally like the most important question you have, which is what am I going to do with my time? Number two of my four pillars on that is I came to the realization that just because you're free, it doesn't mean that you should pursue only what you care about or what makes you happy. Like that is a very vapid, empty definition of freedom. And I've come to believe that doing for others is a fundamental part of freedom. And in this really odd way, like if you can orient your life around being of service to others or being of service to your community, you end up in a more free state mentally. The third thing that was in my pillars was profit is a must, but it cannot be the only. And this is just a recognition that we live in a financial world and a world dominated by economics. And so I think a lot of people who have exposure to the types of books that I've read and types of spiritual stuff that I've been focused on, there's a natural tendency to want to say, withdraw from the world. And what I'm trying to encourage people to do is say, listen, there is all kinds of incredible wisdom in spirituality, and none of it is really in conflict with capitalism and with the idea that you need to create a financially thriving household for your loved ones if you take the right mindset. And so that's what to me profit is a must, but it cannot be the only. You gotta produce a profitable situation for yourself. It's necessary to survive. If you don't have financial resources, you can't survive in this life. So there's that. And then The fourth one is politics cannot be ignored. And I've thought a lot about this, and it's really relevant in a time like this, where here in America, at least, and in many places around the world these days, we have this incredible historical luxury of actually being free politically. Like I mentioned earlier, there's different layers of freedom, but we actually have political freedom where if you go back in history, like 99% of of all humans that have lived were not free politically. They lived under regimes that controlled them in serious, serious ways. And in many cases, people didn't have the choice to do what they wanted to do with their lives. So we're talking about serious, serious control. For those of us who are living in this free time, we can't take it for granted. And I see that a lot, especially among people who pursue business success and an entrepreneurial success. It's like, hey, I'm over here making my money and I'll let government take care of itself. That to me is a mistake. It's a moral mistake. It's a cultural mistake. And so a lot of the work I've been doing with my writing and podcasting is encouraging people to really take seriously their roles as a citizen in democracy. And there's different ways you can do that. One of the things that happened to me in my career is that for some reason I had gotten interested. I had met a young politician here in Los Angeles, and he was running for mayor, and I was really impressed with this person. And I started doing a lot of work for them politically, raising money and tapping my network of investors. Long story short, as a result of doing that political work, I ended up getting put on a city commission for homelessness here in Los Angeles. And that experience, I was already sort of someone who was civically inclined, but that experience really opened my eyes to the issue of citizenship and the role that citizenship can play and should play in developing a truly, comprehensive life, a truly responsible, comprehensive human life. And that experience informed like a whole new line of thinking and a whole new line of activity for me. I'm incredibly involved. Not in, when people say citizenship, they think of things like voting or raising money for politicians, and that is one thing, and it's an important component that you can't ignore because we do live in a democracy and who we elect our leaders matters. But there's another side of citizenship that to me is more valuable, especially in the context of sort of evaluating how you're an individual life. And there's this incredible idea, from Gandhi all the way to Martin Luther King about ahimsa. It's an Indian phrase about, the role of or the importance of engaging in, nonviolent protest or nonviolent civil disobedience. And I started to think that, man, there's a modern, maybe we don't have such big issues like Gandhi and MLK were facing, but there's a modern version of ahimsa that I've been trying to encourage people to consider. And it's this idea that we've gotten so desensitized to politics, and we're so, annoyed by the political rancor and political discussion that we just disengage with it. But we shouldn't. And my experience on this homeless commission made me realize that. And so I've been thinking about things like we have an obligation when we see suffering in the world to do something about it. That's one of the first things that I realized. And so, yeah, in LA, like we have this massive homelessness problem. There's 70,000 homeless people, and most people look at it as an annoyance. They walk by, oh, that's inconvenient. That's unfortunate, but they don't do anything. There's something similar with injustice, right? You can't just look at injustice and just ignore it, right? If we have a racially motivated police brutality issue and people are getting beat, or we have a racial discrimination issue and people are getting locked up because of their race, like that's a problem. And what we've learned from history is that problems like that, they tend to grow, and they could come home to roost. Like, ask people in Europe in the 20th century, what happens when you let that kind of stuff go? Similarly, there's this corruption. And you can't look at corruption and just say, oh yeah, no problem. It's maybe I'm not doing it, so it's not my problem. But corruption has a way of coming home to roost. And then the last one is people tend to get really annoyed when they deal with government in this country because it's so inept and inefficient. And if you watch the news today, you see all the headlines about Doge and whatnot, and it's a real phenomenon. We have inefficiency problems, but the inefficiency problems of the systems that we created ourselves are not something that we should joke about or ignore. They need to be addressed. And so that's sort of my focus in terms of citizenship. And there's different ways that people can get involved in these things. You don't have to do all four, but pick one at least. If you care about helping people who are on the street, do that. And it has nothing to do with raising money for politicians. It has nothing to do with voting, but it is an act that is in service of your community, which you rely on every day. And the more you can do that, honestly, the better your life gets. One of the problems with democratic function in America, but probably everywhere, is that people, they know they need to be engaged in politics. They are emotionally drawn to it, but they are inclined to use the party affiliation as a shortcut to thinking. Because really what a citizen is supposed to do is not just like blindly accept the position paper of their preferred party. They're supposed to look at the situation and say, okay, well, what do I think about this? And if they can't answer that question intelligently, then it's time to go do some research and form an intelligent opinion. Like, that is one of the responsibilities of citizenship. But people like these shortcuts. And so they fall in love with their party or their politician, and they just say they believe in whatever they say. And that's a problem, because that's not the truth usually. Usually that's a slogan. It's an emotional appeal. It's something to get people to vote for you. For anyone that's interested in these topics, like the idea of building wealth without compromising your integrity, or understanding the importance of citizenship in the development of the good life, or understanding freedom and why that's so important to intentionally pursue, you can follow me on my newsletter. It's called Profit Plus. You can just Google my name, NickHalaris.com, and you can sign up for free. We have over 20,000 people reading it from around the world. It's been really humbling to have so many people reading my stuff every week, and we'd love to have you. And then for those who are interested in even more, I have a podcast called The Nick Halaris Show, where I take big issues of the world, whether it's mass gun violence or economic issues or the rise of AI or what's wrong with our education system, and I explore those through the lens of people who are trying to do something constructively about it. So this isn't like an opinion, analyzing people's opinions about what they think about an issue. It's like, hey, I'm interested in solving this problem that I see in the world, and here's what I'm doing. So I'm talking to a lot of socially conscious entrepreneurs and civic activists, authors, artists, and even some politicians. And so for people interested in that, check out the Nick Halaris Show, which you can find on all the major things, and also on the Nick Halaris website. And then I occasionally post on the various social platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, and the handle is @NickHalaris.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries. and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.